It's an impressive looking flight sim, there's no doubt about that. Just look at this footage, absolutely gorgeous looking stuff. Now we've got a whole load of new information that's come in just yesterday from the latest developer Q&A, so we're going to go through all of that, starting with system specification and requirements. So we're going to go over all the new information that we know about the upcoming sim, and we're going to start with some of the technical specifications. Firstly then, one of the big points is the 64GB RAM requirement for the ideal specification. So as you can see on the screen here, we've got minimum requirements, recommended requirements, and ideal requirements. So 64GB of RAM is a big lot indeed. Not that many people have got it. I think around about 3% of people have 64GB of RAM according to the Steam hardware survey. So while 64GB of RAM is listed as ideal, Asobo and Microsoft have said it is recommended for users, but only when running additional software or multitasking along with the sim. The sim itself doesn't require that much memory directly. It only really becomes an issue if you're recording, doing some screen captures, or you're alt-tabbing and trying to multitask with other activities as well. In those events, you will need more than 32GB of RAM. Now, resolution and performance. It's all well and good Microsoft providing these technical specifications you need for your PC, but without knowing what type of performance that's going to give you, what type of resolutions, it's not a big lot of help. Well, Microsoft say that minimum specs will be targeting at 1080p resolution with low settings and 70% render scaling. Recommended specs aim for a 1440p at high settings, and the ideal specs are for 4K resolution on ultra settings. In terms of frame rate for minimum and recommended specs, so that's for 1080p and 1440p, they say they're targeting a minimum of 30 frames per second. On 4K, they say they're targeting at least 30 frames per second, but currently in-house they're achieving 40 to 50 frames per second. So that's the PC, but what about the Xbox? Well, on the Xbox Series S, the sim is going to be targeting 1080p, and it's going to be targeting 4K on the Xbox Series X. This is all with the new optimizations that are being brought alongside the memory stability upgrades that are coming with this version of the sim. Now, we know that the new version of the sim is going to utilize multi-core CPUs much better. It is going to be much better when it comes to multi-threading. We know this because Microsoft have mentioned it before, but they did reiterate it again in their recent Q&A. So yeah, the new simulator does make extensive use of multi-core CPUs, and this should result in significant performance improvements due to increased multi-threading and optimization. In terms of the tech behind all of this, as many of you will know, at least some of you will know I'm sure, Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 supported both DirectX 11 as well as DirectX 12. Now, Flight Sim 2024 will exclusively use DirectX 12. In other words, it will not support DirectX 11. And this is because the new version of the sim uses advanced features that are only available in DirectX 12. Virtual reality support is there. The sim will fully support VR. And in the 2024 edition, we have seen videos of this by those who were in attendance at the preview event, but Microsoft iterate that in terms of performance and optimization, you should be able to expect similar performance to what we've seen in Flight Sim 2020. Now, it also seems that some of the performance, the improved performance, or at least equal performance, is going to be here due to a new system, which is adaptive detail settings. So the new system here will allow for adaptive graphical settings that automatically adjust on the go, and this maintains a target frame rate. This is something we've seen in a lot of other games and some other sims. Microsoft are also going to be implementing AMD FSR 3, so in case you're wondering whether a Fidelity FX Super Resolution 3 is going to be a thing, yes, it's going to be sitting there alongside the other AMD settings as well as the Nvidia settings that we've had in 2020 for a while now. Another thing that Microsoft spoke about is loading times. These have been significantly reduced by using what Microsoft called a unified planet model and optimized asset streaming. Yes, that's a bit of a mouthful, but what does it mean? Well, it turns out that the planet itself within Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 was a major cause for the loading issues, the lengthy loading times that we all saw. And this is because the planet we see on the main menu, the one you use to plan your flights and all the rest of it, is a different planet to the one actually used in the sim, the one you actually fly around. So when you first load up the sim, it has to load up the menu planet. Then when you load into the sim, it unloads the menu planet and loads in the in-sim planet. And then when you leave the sim, of course, it does vice versa, unloads the sim planet and loads in the menu planet. So for 2024, what they've done is got rid of all of that, and they use in a single planet. The planet that's on the main menu is the same planet that you have inside the sim. And that means that you'll have, the world map is actually quite enhanced. You'll have a realistic representation of the world map, and it will now display everything you can see in-game. And that includes all the photogrammetry cities, New York, which will be shown in detailed 3D. Shadows and clouds, all of these will be there. Real-time shadows and cloud formations are visible from the world map. Boat traffic and airport terminals, that will be there as well. So live boat traffic and detailed airport terminals are also going to be displayed. And that means that yes, the world map from the main menu is going to allow for interactive exploration. You can zoom in and out, explore different regions, and see the same world that you'll experience during the flight. And this makes for selecting the areas you want to actually fly far more immersive and far more engaging. And as you may have seen from some of the videos out there, this will also allow for a seamless transition. When you click fly, the simulator no longer needs to unload one planet and load in another. Instead, since the planet is already loaded in, all it needs to do is zoom the camera in to your selected location. And this not only reduces the loading times, but also makes the whole process a lot more visually appealing. Now, another factor that's going to reduce loading time is the optimized asset streaming of the LOD, the level of detail. So this is basically selective LOD load in. The simulator now only loads the level of detail for meshes and textures that are actually needed at that specific moment. So, for example, for a 4K texture, if the object is too far away to see the highest detail, the simulator will only load the lower resolution instead, and will start loading in the higher resolution, the higher texture as you get close. Now, you may think that this is something that's always been done, but a lot of detail, a lot of areas seem to load into memory before you actually need them. Microsoft are trying to reduce this down as much as possible. This also means reduced memory usage. By not loading unnecessary high-resolution assets, the sim can use less memory, and that reduces down in turn the amount of data that needs to be loaded in when starting a flight. Ultimately then, what Microsoft are saying here is that all these things combined will allow for faster loading times, improved performance, and an enhanced user experience. It all sounds good on paper, and from the footage and videos we've seen, it also looks good too, although we have seen a little bit, in some areas I'd say, a little bit of juddering and some low-end frame rates. So yeah, we'll have to see how this goes when we get hands-on experience with it. Now, moving on to world and weather improvements. Some of this we already know about because Microsoft have discussed it previously. Also, we saw some of this in the preview events, but a lot of this information is also new. But I'm going to throw it all in here together to ensure all information is in one place, so you don't have to go to different videos to find out different pieces of information. So, enhanced cloud and weather depiction. There's going to be new cirrus clouds, improved atmospheric scattering, and updated lighting. This will all provide more realistic weather conditions, including better depictions of thick clouds and cloud structures. We're also going to see improved turbulence and thermals when inside the clouds, and the thermal simulations have been enhanced for more realistic glider experiences and more accurate thermal behaviour. Introduction of tornadoes. We've known about this one for a very long time because it was in the announcement trailer. Tornadoes have been added to the sim, although currently these will only be available inside missions. They're not going to be yet available in the live weather due to the data limitations on real-time tornado tracking. Nighttime lighting. Now, you may remember all the way back when Flight Sim 2020 was first being shown off that some of the cityscapes looked very, very nice at night, and when this was actually released, at least nowadays, they don't look anywhere near as good as they did back then. At least that is my opinion on it. With 2024, the night lighting is going to get some enhancements. It's been overhauled with photometric lights and accurate colour temperatures, and this should improve cityscapes and overall nighttime visuals. Weather radar and windshield effects. So the windshield in planes, the windshield wipers now function and can clear rain from the windshield. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how that actually works. It's a pretty neat effect. The addition of working weather radar is still on the backlog and has not been confirmed for launch at the moment. Historical weather data. This is something that people have been asking for a very long time with 2020. Unfortunately, it seems it's not going to be in the 2020 edition of the sim, but Flight Sim 2024 is going to support historical weather for up to 24 hours, and that will allow players to experience live conditions from different times of the day. You'll basically be able to backtrack to different weather conditions that you saw earlier on in the day, and this, I do believe, is going to be applicable all throughout the globe. And then we got auto-gen buildings. So these are the non-photogrammetric cities and towns, the ones that I believe were created by Shark AI. Is it Shark AI? I do believe that's the correct company. Anyway, the Sobo and Microsoft team plans to rewrite the auto-gen building system entirely in-house. They're aiming for better building representations and ultimately are aiming to move away from previous partnerships. They want to have everything in-house with regards to this AI auto-gen technology. Airports are also being upgraded using various different tools, and this is going into partnership with Gaia Simulations, improving buildings, lighting, ground materials and markings across existing airports. In terms of new features and gameplay, we all know the big one is the walk-around mode in free flight. So here, players can walk around their aircraft in free flight at any time, not just during pre-flight. I do believe you can land the craft and then get out and walk around regardless of where you land. At first person only, unfortunately, for walk around mode, there won't be a third person mode, so you won't be able to switch back and look at your avatar and walk around in a GTA type style. Instead, everything will be from first person. Although that said, if you switch to the camera mode, you will then see your avatar. Your avatar, by the way, can be fully customized. There's an extensive creation screen here for your character, and this is represented in all modes of the simulator. You'll see your avatar sitting there in the cockpit. They'll also have the ability to change the appearance of your avatar later in the sim. Now, there's also going to be wear and tear mechanics. Aircraft can experience wear and tear in career mode based on player activities, and this will affect performance and also mean that the aircraft will require maintenance, although damage is not visually represented. Microsoft have touched on the reasons why. Some of the aircraft manufacturers were completely fine with aircraft showing visual damage. Other aircraft manufacturers didn't like the idea of it. So without every single one of them being on board, it made the idea of visual representation for damage entirely moot, entirely pointless. So basically that means that none of the aircraft currently have that. What else have we got? Aircraft damage consequences, talking on the same subject of damage. Crashing or damaging aircraft in career mode does have consequences such as repair costs, and that will have an impact on reputation, and that will be especially important when you own your own aircraft and you want to set up your own business. At least that is when you're playing in career mode. Keep in mind that all existing versions of the sim, if you just want to do free flight or lengthy flights because you're just purely a simmer, that is also going to be supported. You won't have to do career mode if you don't want to, but that is there for the people who prefer a more game-focused version of the sim. So career mode is structured. It offers missions, certifications and progression, with the option to skip training for experienced players. You can also start missions at pretty much any airport, although that said, certain conditions do have to be met. For example, activity-specific constraints might be there for certain airports, such as if you're trying to do firefighting missions. You need to start in an area near where fires have been generated within the sim. Aerial advertising missions for it also. These missions often require starting near beaches or populated areas for suitable advertising. So yeah, you won't be taking a advertising mission out in the wilderness. In short, the sim has the ability to generate billions of different missions, but these will only be available on airports that they're actually suited to. So yeah, essentially you'll be able to make progress through the entire career mode missions. Work your way up from grunt to some high-level CEO or something like that perhaps. Now, there is a career mode reset. Players have the option to completely reset their career mode if they wish to start over. As for third-party aircraft in career mode, well, third-party aircraft can be used in career mode under certain conditions, provided they meet mission requirements and pass an analyzer that checks for compatibility. Other areas of the sim, something that people have been speaking about and asking for a very long time. Another thing is shared cockpit status. Now, shared cockpit functionality is in development for 2024, but it's not going to be ready at launch. Microsoft say they do have a prototype version of this that has been created. It's showing promise for future updates. So When and where we'll get that is certainly open to interpretation, and let's just hope that it's not in Flight Sim 2028. Replayability, replay functionality, this is going to be a thing in Flight Sim 2024. It's going to have a very big system that is being brought in from a third-party developer, and this is going to be available on Xbox. People have been wondering whether the console version of the sim will have replay functionality. Yes, it is going to, and it will include all the features from Flight Controller Replay. All of this will be available on Xbox. Okay, next up is peripherals and settings. We'll start with hardware compatibility. So all existing hardware and peripherals that are currently compatible with Flight Sim 2020 will work with the 2024 version. In terms of new input systems and per plane settings, there's going to be an updated input or keybind system that allows players to set controls per aircraft or per category, and this will provide for customized experiences and the ability to share presets as well. So essentially, when you jump from aircraft to aircraft, you'll be able to have a customizable set of keybinds for each different craft. Full force feedback support is not yet implemented, unfortunately, and this is due to hardware availability, but the team is open to integrating this in the future. Head tracking support. Non-VR head tracking devices like TrackIR and Tobii Eye Tracker are supported in Flight Sim 2024, so that's good to know for those of us who use that. And in terms of VR support, we have spoken about this previously. VR support is confirmed, so that's hardware. Then we have multiplayer and AI traffic as well. Let's put that in there. Improved AI traffic behavior. AI aircraft now exhibit apparently better behavior. So yeah, that would mean AI-controlled aircraft will behave more realistically. Now, earlier we touched on player avatars, so yes, you do have an avatar as you walk around outside your plane, although when you're walking around, you're only in first person. Yes, I'm repeating that bit, but doing so for a reason. What happens in multiplayer? Well, it turns out that other players cannot see your avatar. When walking around, players will not be able to see each other's avatars. Avatars are currently only going to be visible when inside cockpits. Some effects, though, like contrails, are now going to be visible to other players from other players' aircraft, and this is a nice addition to multiplayer, so yeah, at least some things are being improved with multiplayer in the regards of visuals. Now, ATC. I know a lot of people have been asking about ATC. Not a lot of details on this, unfortunately. What we do know is that enhanced ATC voices are going to be a thing. Microsoft say that new technologies provide more natural and less robotic ATC voices, and this should improve the communication experience with varied accents and languages. So yeah, that's more, I guess, of a superficial level thing, but it's still an improvement nonetheless. The ATC system will also support multiple languages, and this should offer localized communications depending on the region you're in. Marketplace ownership. This is for the things that you've purchased from the marketplace on Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. All of these are going to carry over to 2024, with the content being available to use and stream immediately or download if preferred. Content transfer between platforms. Content ownership is linked to the user's account, and this should allow for cross-platform compatibility regardless of the purchased platform. So regardless of whether you've purchased the add-on on Steam or the Microsoft Store, you should be able to use that item universally. And meanwhile, whilst we know that Microsoft have confirmed that everything purchased from the in-sim marketplace will transfer across to 2020, pending the third-party approval of that, what about third-party stores, content purchased from those? So add-ons purchased from third-party stores like Orbex and the Sim Market, these can be transferred to Flight Sim 2024 simply by copying them into the community folder. Now, this seems a little bit too straightforward to me, and I suspect there may well be a few issues here and there. Unfortunately, Microsoft didn't appear to give any more details in this regard, so hopefully this is something we'll hear more about later on, or alternatively, it's something that I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out. So there we have it, a whole bunch of new information for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. This was the first developer Q&A for that version of the sim, and they say there will be another one, maybe another two, before the sim is released on the 19th of November. So do keep an eye out for those, and of course, any more information I do hear, I will be sure to make a video on and keep you all up to date. This video's certainly been a bit of a long one, so thank you to watching it all the way through to the end for those of you who are still here. And if you are interested, do check out the other video on the screen right here. Thanks for watching, do take care, and I'll catch you next time.